They threw me and my little boy out of Thanksgiving dinner like we were strangers. Standing in the cold, my parents screamed, "You're not welcome at our family party!" The laughter inside echoed, and my son's small hand trembled in mine. I tried to understand. How could they choose my sister's comfort over their own daughter? The sting of betrayal burned deeper than the November wind. But what they didn't realize was that I had been quietly paying their bills for 3 years. That night, I made a vow. The game was over, and everything would change. The scent of roasted turkey drifted through the Morgan household, mingling with cinnamon, pumpkin pie, and the faint polish of the hardwood floors. From the outside, our home looked like a postcard. Golden leaves scattered across the lawn, fairy lights twinkling along the porch, and laughter spilling out of the windows. Inside, everything was orchestrated like a theater production. My parents thrived on appearances, and Thanksgiving was their grandest stage. I stood in the hallway, smoothing down my son's shirt. Daniel was 9, all bright eyes and innocent excitement. "Mom, will Grandma let me carve the turkey this year?" he asked, his voice brimming with hope. I forced a smile, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Maybe, sweetheart. We'll see." I wanted him to believe that today was about family, warmth, and love, even if I knew better. The dining room was dazzling. A long mahogany table stretched beneath a chandelier, every plate set perfectly, silver gleaming, napkins folded into intricate shapes. Olivia, my younger sister, stood in the center of it all, like the star of a show. Her dress was elegant, her hair styled to perfection, and her laugh was the loudest in the room. People gravitated toward her effortlessly, showering her with compliments. I lingered by the doorway, holding Daniel's hand as we stepped inside. My mother swooped toward Olivia, kissing her cheek, praising her promotion at the marketing firm for everyone to hear. "Olivia, darling, you're truly our pride. Look at how accomplished you are, such a role model for this family." My father joined in, adding, "We always knew you'd go far." The applause from the relatives was like rehearsed applause on cue. And me? I was the shadow in the corner. I sat down quietly at the end of the table, Daniel beside me, while Olivia was ushered to the center seat. She glowed in the attention, throwing me a glance, sharp, smug, and cutting. For a second, my chest tightened. That glance said more than words. "You don't belong here." The meal began with wine glasses clinking, the chorus of cheers, and Olivia recounting her latest triumphs at work. I tried to join in small conversations, but they drifted past me, slipping into a current I couldn't enter. Every time I spoke, someone interrupted, pivoting back to Olivia. My father finally turned to me with a polite smile that felt like a blade. "Claire, maybe you should take notes from your sister. She knows how to seize opportunities. You could learn something." Laughter erupted around the table as if it were harmless banter, but my cheeks burned. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his little hand squeezing mine under the table. I swallowed the sting in my throat, forcing a tight smile. "Yes, maybe you're right," I said softly. It was the only way to keep peace. Later, as plates cleared, I slipped into the kitchen to help clean up. I stacked plates, scrubbed pans, wiped down counters, chores no one noticed, chores Olivia never touched. While I worked, a cousin pulled out a phone, chuckling quietly. "Let me get this," he muttered, recording me while I carried a stack of dishes to the sink. I thought nothing of it, assuming he was just filming the festivities. But as I bent over the sink, hands deep in soap and water, I overheard him whisper to another relative. Caption: "The family loser pretending to be useful. This is going to blow up in the group chat." My heart froze. The words lodged in my chest like shards of glass. They weren't just laughing at me behind closed doors, they were broadcasting it, turning my effort into a punchline. I turned slowly, meeting the cousin's eyes, but he quickly shoved his phone into his pocket, smirking. He didn't even care that I'd heard. I stood there for a moment, suds dripping from my hands, staring at my reflection in the darkened kitchen window. My own face looked like a stranger's, tired, hollow, aching, and yet I forced myself to continue scrubbing, because what else could I do? I had Daniel to think of. He was laughing faintly from the other room, still innocent to the cruelty pulsing like poison in this house. But as I dried my hands on a towel, I knew deep down, this wasn't just an ordinary family dinner. This was a warning shot. Something darker was building under the surface, and Olivia's smirk from across the table still burned in my mind, like the flicker of lightning before a storm. It started small, like a whisper threading its way through the walls. I didn't notice it at first, too busy with work deadlines, Daniel's school projects, and the ordinary chaos of life. But then I began to feel it. Invitations to family lunches grew scarce. The usual texts in our family group chat seemed to flow without me, as though I were fading into the background of my own bloodline. The truth revealed itself late one night when I scrolled through Facebook. Olivia had posted a smiling selfie with my parents at brunch, her caption sly. Taking care of mom and dad while others just take advantage. Some of us know what family means. The comments lit up, cousins applauding her, aunts leaving hearts. My stomach twisted. She was talking about me. A few days later, the poison spread. On the private family group page, where recipes and baby pictures usually circulated, Olivia dropped her dagger. It's hard watching Claire constantly borrow money from mom and dad. She really needs to grow up. I can't be the only one noticing this, right? No one tagged me. No one asked me. But I saw the likes, the sympathetic emojis. And worst of all, silence from my parents. They didn't deny it. They didn't defend me. By doing nothing, they agreed. I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing. I wanted to call my parents, demand an explanation, but something in me froze. If they had believed Olivia without question, what would my words matter? I knew the truth. I had been paying their mortgage for 3 years, yet here they were, letting her paint me as a parasite. Days bled into weeks. Daniel asked why we weren't going to Sunday dinners anymore. I mumbled excuses about busy schedules, but the truth gnawed at me. The messages stopped coming. Birthdays passed without a call. Slowly, invisibly, I was erased. Then, one night, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my oldest friend, Sarah. "Claire, I need to ask, is it true? Are you borrowing money from your parents all the time? Olivia keeps saying it. I didn't want to believe her, but everyone's talking." The words burned across the screen. My throat closed, fingers trembling over the keyboard. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Sarah was my safe place, the one person who knew me better than anyone. If she was asking, it meant Olivia's story had reached far beyond family. I typed back, "No, none of it's true. I've been supporting them, but they'll never admit it." Then I stared at the message, wondering if even Sarah would believe me. The infection had taken root. By the time Thanksgiving approached, the lines had been drawn. Olivia had my parents under her spell, and I was no longer even considered part of the equation. One evening, I overheard Daniel practicing his school presentation. "Family means love no matter what," he recited. My chest ached. What would happen when he realized that wasn't always true? The final blow came during a phone call I hadn't expected. My mother's voice was sharp, rehearsed. "Claire, it's better if you don't come this year. Olivia says she won't stay if you're there, and we can't afford to upset her. You understand, don't you?" For a moment, silence roared in my ears. "You're saying I'm not welcome?" My voice cracked. Her pause was damning. "It's not that. We just need peace. You know how Olivia is." I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. They weren't even ashamed. They didn't fight for me, didn't stand up for me. They handed me over like a pawn in Olivia's game. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table long after Daniel had gone to bed, staring at nothing. My parents had made their choice. I was expendable. Somewhere across town, Olivia was celebrating her victory. In a private gathering with her friends, she played a video on her phone. My parents sitting stiffly on the couch. Her voice was triumphant. "So, if Claire comes, I'm leaving. You'll pick me, right?" My mother nodded. My father followed. "Of course, Olivia. You're our priority. We can't lose you." Laughter filled the room as Olivia replayed the clip, basking in her power. She had proof and she flaunted it, certain I'd never know. But the world has a strange way of leaking secrets. That clip would not stay hidden forever. And me? I still clung to a fragile hope, whispering to myself in the dark. They're my parents. They may bend to her now, but they'll never truly abandon their own daughter. I was wrong. The night air was sharp, biting against my skin as Daniel and I stood at the doorstep of my parents' house. The windows glowed warmly, laughter spilling out into the cold November darkness. I carried a pumpkin pie in one hand and held Daniel's hand with the other, his little fingers wrapped tightly around mine. He was bouncing with excitement, whispering about turkey, pie, and cousins. For a moment, I let myself believe we were about to step into family, into belonging. Then the door opened. My mother stood there, her face stiff, my father just behind her. Olivia leaned casually against the hallway wall, her phone in her hand. My mother's words sliced through me like ice. "Claire, you're not welcome here tonight. It's better if you leave." I blinked, stunned, certain I'd misheard. "What? We came for Thanksgiving. Daniel's been waiting all week." Olivia's lips curled into a smirk as she raised her phone. The red recording light was on. "Protecting my peace," she said brightly, snapping a selfie as my parents blocked the doorway. My stomach turned. Daniel tugged at me, confused. "Grandma? Grandpa? Why can't we come in?" My father wouldn't meet his eyes. He muttered, "It's just, Olivia doesn't want you here. We need to keep the peace." Daniel's small voice cracked. "Mom, why don't they love us?" He clung to me, tears spilling down his cheeks. His question shattered me more than their rejection. I wrapped my arms around him, shielding him from their cold stares. Behind us, neighbors' porch lights flicked on. A couple of relatives arriving late stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching in silence as the scene unfolded. Olivia turned her phone to capture my humiliation, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "See? Boundaries matter. Some people don't belong at the table." The door slammed shut in my face, the pie trembling in my hands before it slipped and splattered across the porch. I stood frozen, staring at the wood grain of that door as though it had swallowed the last illusion of love I had left. "This is the last time," I whispered under my breath, holding Daniel close. The words weren't a plea, they were a vow. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying every second, the look on Olivia's face, the cold dismissal in my mother's voice, the way my father avoided Daniel's eyes. Over and over, the moment looped in my head until it blurred into something monstrous. Food lost its taste. I skipped meals, the pie crumbs still haunting my kitchen counter. Each time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's trembling question, "Why don't they love us?" Days passed in a fog. I went through motions at work, answering emails mechanically, my heart pounding with invisible weight. At night, I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the dark ceiling, wondering if maybe Olivia was right. Maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I was the burden no one wanted. One evening, as I tucked Daniel into bed, he reached up, wrapping his small arms around my neck. His voice was gentle, unshaken despite everything. "It's okay, Mom. We still have each other." Tears blurred my vision as I kissed his forehead. For a brief moment, warmth filled my chest. It was the only thread holding me together, the reminder that at least one soul loved me unconditionally. But when the house grew quiet again, despair crashed back in. The silence screamed louder than any rejection. I paced the living room, whispering to myself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I've been too much. Maybe I really am the weight dragging them down." I stumbled toward the kitchen, hands trembling as I poured myself a glass of water. Bills were scattered across the counter, waiting for me to sort them. Mechanically, I shuffled through the envelopes, searching for distraction. Then I froze. The bank statement stared back at me. Line after line of transactions, years' worth of auto payments tied to my account. Mortgage, electricity, gas, medical expenses, all in my name, all deducted from my paycheck. I dropped the paper, my knees weak. My breath caught in my throat as realization crashed over me. For 3 years, I had been carrying them. Every month, every bill, every necessity, paid by me. They hadn't supported me. I had been supporting them. And yet, They had thrown me and Daniel out as though we were parasites. The twisted irony made me laugh, bitter and broken. All this time, I'd believed they loved Olivia more because she shone brighter, because she was easier to love. But now I saw the truth. They loved her because I carried the weight silently, because my sacrifices let them keep their golden image intact. Rage flickered through the despair, faint but alive. My reflection glared back at me from the kitchen window, eyes hollow yet burning. If they wanted me gone, then fine. But they had no idea what it would cost them. The papers lay scattered across my kitchen table like shards of truth I could no longer ignore. Mortgage, electricity, gas, insurance, all drained from my account, month after month, year after year. I pressed my palms against the table, the veins in my arms trembling as I tried to steady myself. For so long I had swallowed their insults, convinced myself I was invisible because I was unworthy, but the evidence screamed otherwise. I wasn't the burden. I was the backbone. The humiliation of that Thanksgiving night, the laughter from behind the slammed door, my son's tears, all of it ignited something inside me. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was fury, raw and unfiltered, and for the first time I realized I wasn't powerless. I stayed up late, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating the darkened room. My fingers flew across the keys as I searched for answers: scapegoat child, narcissistic family, toxic sibling rivalry. Each article I read seemed to mirror my life. Narcissistic parents needing a golden child and a scapegoat to keep their fragile balance. Olivia had been their star and I had been their target, absorbing blame, carrying responsibility, and being cast out when convenient. The words on the screen felt like a revelation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. There was a system, a pattern, one I had been trapped in since childhood. Understanding it didn't erase the pain, but it gave me clarity, and clarity gave me strength. Daniel stirred in his sleep, his soft breathing echoing down the hall. I glanced toward his room, a wave of protectiveness washing over me. This ended now, not just for me, but for him. He would not grow up believing this twisted version of family was normal. I opened a blank email draft, my heart pounding. Every keystroke felt like striking a match. You chose Olivia, now live with your choice. I read the line over and over, letting its finality sink in. Then I hit save. Not send. Not yet. But just knowing those words existed, waiting, gave me power. The next morning, I moved with a focus I hadn't felt in years. The first step was practical. Cut the lifeline. I logged into my bank accounts, scrolling to the automatic payments linked to my parents' bills. With every click of cancel, I felt a chain loosen from my chest. Mortgage, canceled. Electricity, canceled. Gas, canceled. Insurance, canceled. When the final confirmation flashed on the screen, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. For the first time in years, my money was mine. But cutting them off wasn't enough. They were cunning, manipulative, and cruel. I needed protection. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, explaining my situation in hushed tones across a mahogany desk. He nodded gravely as I laid out the years of financial support, the lies, the humiliation. "You've done more than enough," he said firmly. "You need to document everything. If they try to retaliate, you'll have proof." I gathered receipts, bank statements, emails, mountains of evidence I had once dismissed as meaningless. Now, they were armor. At night, I wrote in a journal, pouring my grief and fury onto the page. Each entry was a wound lanced, a poison drained. They said I was unworthy. They said I was unwelcome, but I have kept them alive. I will not let their poison touch Daniel anymore. It wasn't easy. Some nights I still curled into myself, replaying their rejection until tears soaked my pillow. But then Daniel would pad into my room, curl beside me, and whisper, "We're okay, Mom. We've got each other." His warmth was the anchor that kept me steady. One evening, my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was my cousin Anna. the one relative I thought had vanished into Olivia's orbit like the rest. Her voice was hushed but urgent. "Claire, I saw what they did to you on Thanksgiving, and I've heard what Olivia's been spreading. It's lies. I know it's lies, and I'm done pretending." My breath caught. "Anna, why are you telling me this now?" "Because," she said, her voice hardening, "they've gone too far. I have friends who saw Olivia's video before she deleted it. People are starting to question the story. If you want, I'll help you. I'll tell everyone the truth about who's really been keeping this family afloat." For a moment, silence stretched between us. I felt the sting of tears in my eyes, but not from sadness. It was something else, relief, vindication. Someone believed me. Someone saw me. "Thank you," I whispered. Anna didn't hesitate. "It's time the whole family knows. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." I ended the call with my hands shaking, not from fear, but from anticipation. The tide was shifting. The fortress Olivia had built on lies and manipulation was beginning to crack. And this time, I wasn't the one holding it up. I glanced at the saved email on my laptop screen, the words waiting like a loaded arrow. "You chose Olivia. Now live with your choice." The storm was coming, but for once, I was ready to walk straight into it. It didn't take long for the silence to break. A week after I canceled the auto payments, my parents received the first notice. "Mortgage overdue." A few days later, the power company followed with a red warning slip taped to their door. By the end of the month, the gas was cut. The house that had glowed with warm lights on Thanksgiving now sat in darkness. Neighbors whispered as they walked past, watching the Morgans shuffle outside in their coats, trying to stay warm with a generator that sputtered and died. Olivia stormed through the house like a queen without her crown, her fury echoing down the street. "This is your fault!" she screamed at my parents, her voice shrill. "I told you she was nothing but trouble. Why did you let her handle your bills? Why did you believe her lies?" My father's voice cracked under the weight of his own shame. "Olivia, we trusted you when you said Claire was the problem. We thought—" "You thought?" Olivia spat. "You thought wrong. Now look at us. Humiliated, broke, a laughingstock." Their shouting rattled the windows, their once perfect facade shattering into jagged edges. What they didn't know was that the scene hadn't gone unnoticed. A neighbor across the street, tired of the noise and curious about the spectacle, recorded the entire meltdown. Within hours, the video was online, captioned, "The Morgans, from Golden Family to Total Disaster." The clip spread like wildfire, gathering comments faster than leaves in a storm. Strangers laughed at Olivia's tantrum, dissected my parents' hypocrisy, and some even recognized the Thanksgiving video she had once posted with her smug smile. The perfect image of the Morgan family crumbled under the weight of its own lies. By the time Christmas approached, the Morgans were pariahs. Relatives who had once applauded Olivia's every achievement now cut ties, unwilling to be associated with scandal. Invitations dried up. Old friends unfollowed them on social media. The same community that had envied their perfect family dinners now gossiped about their collapse in grocery store aisles. Olivia lost her shine. The girl who once strutted into parties basking in admiration now found herself whispered about, pitied, or worse, mocked. Her viral "Protecting My Peace" clip was resurrected online, spliced with footage of her screaming at my parents. She became a punchline, her reputation shredded. My parents bore the brunt of the fallout. Without me, they had no safety net. Bills piled high, credit cards maxed out, and the support of extended family gone. When their car was repossessed, the last illusion of stability vanished. It was inevitable. They came to me. I was sitting in my living room, Daniel beside me working on his homework, when the knock echoed through the house. I opened the door to find my parents standing there, smaller somehow, their faces etched with desperation. My mother's eyes were rimmed red, my father's shoulders slumped like a man who had carried too much shame for too long. "Claire," my mother whispered, her voice trembling. We need your help. We made a mistake." Olivia lied. "You're the only one who can save us." For a moment, I stood frozen, staring at the people who had once slammed a door in my face, who had let my son cry in the cold just to appease Olivia. I felt Daniel's presence behind me, his eyes wide as he recognized his grandparents. The air between us was thick with history, betrayal, and something even heavier, choice. My father spoke next, his voice breaking. "We were wrong, Claire. We should never have treated you that way. Please, just one more chance." The irony almost made me laugh. For years, I had begged for scraps of love, for acknowledgement, for a seat at their table. And now they stood before me begging. I took a deep breath, the anger and grief coiling in my chest like smoke. But when I spoke, my words came out steady, deliberate. "I wish you peace, but you won't find it in me anymore." The sentence hung in the air, final and unyielding. My mother gasped softly, as though the words were a blade. My father's shoulders sagged further, his eyes glassy with something like regret. I didn't slam the door. I simply closed it slowly, quietly, leaving them on the porch the same way they had left me and Daniel weeks before. Through the glass, I saw them stand there for a long time before walking away into the night, their figures shrinking against the streetlights. Inside, Daniel slipped his hand into mine. "Mom," he said softly, "are we really done with them?" I looked down at him, his innocence cutting through the storm like a ray of light. "Yes," I whispered, kneeling to meet his eyes. "We're done, but that doesn't mean we're alone. We're free now, Daniel, free to build something better." He smiled, relief softening his features. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The Morgans' empire had collapsed, but in its ruins, I had found my voice. And as the whispers of the community spread, as Olivia's throne turned to dust, as my parents carried the weight of their choices, justice had been served. Thanksgiving came again, a year after the night my parents slammed the door in my face. This time, the house was different. Smaller, warmer, filled with the scent of rosemary potatoes, roasted chicken, and apple pie cooling on the counter. Friends filled the living room, laughter spilling across the walls, while Daniel raced around with the other kids, his cheeks flushed with joy. I stood in the kitchen, watching it all unfold, my heart swelling with something I hadn't felt in years, peace. There was no tension, no whispered comparisons, no invisible hierarchy where I was always less. Just people who chose to be here because they cared, because they wanted to share this day with us. At the table, I raised a glass, my hand steady, my smile unforced. "To chosen family," I said, my voice ringing with quiet conviction. Glasses clinked, cheers rose, and Daniel beamed at me from across the table. Later that night, after the guests had gone, I uploaded a short clip to social media. The video was simple. Our small table surrounded by friends, kids giggling in the background, candles glowing softly. The caption read, "First Thanksgiving with chosen family." Grateful doesn't even begin to cover it. I didn't expect much, but by the next morning my phone buzzed non-stop. The clip had gone viral, climbing past 1 million views in hours. Comments poured in from strangers across the world. This made me cry. "Your story saved me. I thought I was the only one." "Blood isn't always family. Thank you for saying it out loud." I scrolled through the messages, tears spilling down my cheeks, not from sadness, but from something brighter. For the first time, my pain wasn't just mine. It had become a bridge, connecting me to others who carried the same scars. Then a new message popped up. This one wasn't from a stranger. "You're not alone. I'm leaving them too." It was Anna, my cousin, the one who had first reached out when the lies began to unravel. My hand trembled as I read her words. A rush of emotions flooded me. Relief, vindication, hope. It wasn't just me anymore. The fortress had cracks, and others were finding their way out. I leaned back, exhaling deeply. This wasn't just my survival. It was a ripple spreading further than I had imagined. Weeks passed, and the world slowly shifted. I still saw Olivia's face occasionally, plastered across gossip posts, her reputation in tatters. My parents had vanished into obscurity, their desperate pleas ignored by the very people who once idolized them. But I no longer watched with bitterness. Their downfall no longer consumed me. One evening, as Daniel and I sat by the fireplace, he asked quietly, "Mom, why don't we see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" I paused, weighing my words carefully. He deserved honesty, but not bitterness. I pulled him close, my arm wrapping around his shoulders, because sometimes people who are supposed to love us don't know how. And when that happens, it doesn't mean we're unworthy. It just means we have to choose better for ourselves. He tilted his head, thinking. So, family isn't just who you're born to? I smiled, brushing his hair back. No, sweetheart. Family is the people who choose you, who stand by you, who make you feel safe. Family is the people who don't abandon you. He nodded slowly, his eyes bright. Like our friends? Exactly like our friends, I said. His little smile spread, pure and unburdened. In that moment, I realized the legacy I was giving him wasn't one of pain, but of freedom. The freedom to define love on his own terms. I wasn't a warrior hardened by rage. I wasn't a cold avenger waiting for destruction. I was simply a woman who had walked through fire, carrying her son, and found that on the other side, there was light. My strength wasn't in becoming untouchable. It was in learning to love, but wisely. To give, but not at the cost of myself. As I stood by the window that night, the city lights flickering in the distance, I caught my reflection. For the first time, I didn't see the scapegoat, the failure, the unwanted daughter. I saw Claire Morgan, mother, survivor, creator of a new life. My eyes glistened not with sorrow, but with hope. I smiled, soft but certain. The chains of my past had fallen, and before me stretched a horizon unmarked by their cruelty. The journey wasn't about revenge, it was about freedom, and I had finally, fully claimed it.